dusty copy a year ago, the blood of miners was shed. Marikana remains a blight on the nation's collective conscience. It witnessed the birth of a new party. Its leader, the fiery orator Julius Malema. Oozing confidence, he has vowed to fundamentally resculpt the political landscape. Taking to the podium in his trademark style, few were spared, including journalists.
Let the real economic freedom fighter come out of you. Stop suppressing that inner economic freedom fighter. Black journalist, be the real EFF. Don't pretend to a white person.
He promised time and resources to champion the downtrodden, ranging from orphans to sex workers and exploited miners. All of them would have a place, Malema promised, at the red heart of the EFF. The party appeals to the radical left. Land and its acquisition through any means has become the party's cornerstone.
The landless people, they need land. They can't be landless in a country of their own birth.
There was a word of caution from political veterans, also unceremoniously booted out of the ANC.
You should not delude yourselves into thinking that the life in opposition party politics in South Africa is a bowl of cherries, because it is not. From Cape to Cairo.
Vuyo Mvoko, SABC News, Marikana.
All right, let's take this story further with Vuyo, who's in studio with me. Julius Malema's new party officially launching yesterday. Welcome to Morning Live. It's lovely to have you here.
It's good to be here.
All right, now let's start off at the beginning about these rumours during the rounds that the SABC was actually kicked out of this launch. What's going on there?
Not true whatsoever. Okay. We're not even threatened. We were also surprised because we were there and there were people tweeting all stuff about things that we were not experiencing, so it just never happened. We're not even threatened.
All right, Twitter making up stories once again.
Oh, well.
Okay, well, good. I'm glad you came to the rescue, sort that out. So there was no truth to that rumour whatsoever. Now, let's talk about the significance of having a launch at Marikana. Can we read anything into that?
Well, first of all, there's a history to it. Because remember, the day after Marikana, no one went to empathize, political party that is, with the people of Marikana who were grieved at the time, shocked at the death of those people who were killed by the police. And Julius Malema was among the first, in fact, probably the first politician to go there, speak to the people of Marikana in a language that they understood. He identified with them, and he was unambiguous about that. Whereas political parties were umming and ahhing and not too sure about what to do. So there is a sense of Julius having been part of that community from that day on. So you could see even in the messages of support that the workers of Marikana and the community at large passed there. They were like, really, here's a man that they held in high regard, whom they believe was with them. That's number one. But secondly, thereafter you saw that many opposition parties flocked to Marikana because they believe that Marikana is in for the taking. And even symbolically, if you get to sort of closer to people who are vulnerable, people who needed a shoulder to cry on, then you are proving to be worth your. In other words, politicians would gravitate towards those communities because they believe that the ANC has sort of neglected them or snubbed them, so they will then want to exercise revenge, if you like, and your Marikana is probably the most obvious stop.
Yeah. Do you think they achieved what they set out to achieve?
I think to an extent, to a very large extent they did. I mean, the police are estimating that 15,000 people were there yesterday. So there was a massive show of force. which I think is a very important thing. But also, I mean, the event went on peacefully, so there was a great level of maturity that these youngsters, if you like, can they conduct themselves orderly, and the obvious answer there is that they in fact did. But also, I think from a policy point of view, I think everyone has been looking forward to hearing what who the EFF is targeting and what it's about.
Yeah.
And I think to a very large extent, in a wide-ranging speech, Julius actually did that. He spoke about the various people that they are targeting. He's talking about sex workers. He's talking about petrol attendants. He spoke about virtually everyone who is vulnerable in South Africa today, and said very little actually about the bourgeoisie, so to speak. So he sort of firmly, even though he didn't count it in those in that language, but what was very clear was that he was saying, I'm talking to you and me, people who are out there, very vulnerable, to a very large extent neglected by the ruling party, certainly from where Malema sat. So he did, I think, give a very clear indication of who he's targeting, but also he emphasized the point of the question of the land, that's what they're about. That's fundamental in their approach to virtually everything that they will be doing.
Yeah. We talk about 15,000 people gathered there. What was the crowd like? Was it primarily the miners in the area? Did you find that there were primarily youth in that crowd? What are we looking at? Who are the EFF followers?
It was young and old, but mostly young people.
Okay.
And because we spoke to the organizers afterwards as to where these people were drawn from, they were mostly from Marikana and surrounding areas. So it goes back to what we were saying earlier, why Marikana. It was because Marikana was in for the taking. It was low-hanging fruit, so to speak. But there were lots of buses from other areas of the northwest, from Mpumalanga and Gauteng. So it was, but mostly it was people from the area, which I think is a great. It really shows that Marikana is in for the taking. But whether Marikana in any way begins to suggest that they will get that kind of support elsewhere in the country, I don't think they themselves actually were in agreement with a lot of us who were saying, but this in no way suggests that you're going to get the numbers you need countrywide.
Yeah.
However, to have pulled those numbers, because very few political parties would pull those kinds of numbers, even in Marikana. So it is a good start. It
is a good start. But like many people are saying, he needs to keep up this momentum, and he also needs to get the youth to register, because I think that's the whole thing, to get those votes.
Well, even before you even get there, I think the important thing to note is that COPE, for example, when it started, it had more hype than what you're seeing the EFF having now. It had a lot more leaders, recognizable leaders who could pull masses. But look where COPE is today.
Yeah.
Well, of course, they have had their fair share of problems, but even at the beginning, before they ran into the problems that we saw, I mean, they probably stood a better chance than the EFF stands now, theoretically, at least. Yet, they couldn't quite get where they would have wanted to go. Whether Julius can pull off this one.
Well, it is, you're right, a way to be seen. He never left a stone unturned. I think Julius Malema stood up and spoke. He touched on everything. Whatever he felt he needed to get off his chest, he got it off.
I mean, he started off
what
by
stood out
being,
for you?
He started off by being, presidential, if you like. Because I think that's the image he wanted to project, of a sober guy, less of the militancy and that rhetoric that is famous for. So he was touching very soberly on a whole range of issues that appeared. But then, Julius being Julius, he just couldn't.
He couldn't contain
keep
himself.
up with this image that is really not him. Towards the end, he just.
Yeah, he gave it to everybody.
He became the Julius that we
from journalists to you name it. I mean, everybody. No healthcare, private healthcare, no private schooling, no.
But I think what is important.
All of this.
I think what is important is that he actually did quite a number of things people didn't think that he would do. In other words, you expected the guy to go in there and be populist, because after all, that's what he's known for, which he did. like towards the end of his speech. But right at the beginning, he appealed soberly to everyone, and he projected an image of someone who thinks and someone who actually understands the complexity of issues. If you look, for example, at how he approached the teacher's question, he said, "You are teachers, and we are with you. We are with you in your struggles, and we understand your plight. However, what we cannot sympathize, we cannot agree with you if, for example, you're going to embark on strikes, during school hours, compromising the future of our children." I mean, to strike that, very few politicians would actually want to go in there, especially on the eve of an election, because they would want to get every constituency they can possibly. So he just made it very clear what their position is, that as much as we want you and we want you to be part of us, and remember, part of their strategy is to infiltrate the unions, and other established constituents, NGOs and so on. So as much as they are venturing into that and they need those constituencies, he was being actually forthright about what they don't like about or within those constituencies, which I think was a bold move.
Okay, very quickly, Vuyo, what did you make of what he was saying about President Jacob Zuma? He was very scathing.
He was very scathing. I think his approach is that he seems to think that the sort of how President Zuma carries himself sort of delivers him to the opposition or to people like him who would want to capitalize on his mistakes or shortcomings. So I think that's where he wanted, and to leave it very late. In other words, towards the end of his speech was to sort of leave doubts about President Zuma and his ability to actually live. And in fact, he even went further to say he apologizes to the nation for having delivered President Zuma to all of us. He thinks it was something very wrong, which I think was a clever way, of actually trying to, or in his attempt to dethrone him as he seeks to do. But of course, whether the oldest liberation movement on the continent and the biggest party by far in the country will be dethroned by Julius and the policies that they stand for and the campaigning that they're going to embark upon is something I think we'll see come 2014.
Interesting elections coming up. Vuyo Mvoko, contributing editor here at the SABC. Thank you very, very much for being our guest here on Morning Live. Let's take